Hi everyone, Mike Russell here from the RCYC. Obviously not coming to you from the kitchens of the yacht club, coming to you from my kitchen at home. We're all doing our part to stay safe and self-quarantine. So that's what we're doing. It's the week of Easter, and I thought what a great recipe would be for the whole family. It's a crowd pleaser for such an occasion. So we'll be cooking some cinnamon buns with cream cheese icing. Yeah, let's get started. So it's basically a three-part recipe. The first part being the dough, the second part being the filling, and the third part is the icing. So we'll get started with the dough first. And we'll start by dissolving the yeast. So we have about 5 grams, 2 teaspoons of yeast here. We're going to add that to a bowl. And then some of the sugar that we'll be adding later on to the dough. We're going to steal a bit of this and a couple pinches and use it to help activate the yeast. Yeast like sugar, and they like to eat that sugar up. And then also we'll be adding the milk, which has been warmed. I just warmed this kind of in the microwave very quickly, and it's currently at about 38.5 degrees Celsius. So I'd say 37 to 40 is probably a good spot. I think in Fahrenheit that's about 100 to 105 Fahrenheit. So we will add that to the yeast and the sugar mixture. Dissolve it, and we'll just put it aside for about 10 minutes. It should froth up a little bit, and then it would be ready to be added to the dough. So we'll put that aside for now. At this point, we can mix all of our dry ingredients as well. So we've got the remainder of the sugar. We'll put that in with the flour and the salt as well. Again, about 5 grams of that, 2 teaspoons as well, and the sugar was about 125 grams. And then basically what we're going to need for equipment is we're going to need a KitchenAid mixer. If you don't have a KitchenAid mixer, don't fret. You're just going to have to work a little bit harder. You'll have to knead this dough by hand. Okay, now that our yeast is dissolved, we're going to get all of our liquid ingredients into the bowl of the KitchenAid mixer. So I'm just going to wipe this bowl out, make sure there's no debris in it. We will add the sugar, yeast, milk mixture to the bowl, followed by 3 eggs. These are large eggs, organic eggs. If you don't have organic eggs, don't worry about it. Use whatever you have at hand. And lastly, some melted butter. And that's 75 grams. So we're going to be using a paddle attachment to start, just to kind of mix the dough together, followed by the dough hook attachment. So we'll get started by mixing these ingredients, all the wet together. Just do it over kind of a medium heat, medium speed, kind of get it working. There we go, everything's all together. Now we're going to slowly add in our dry ingredients, which again consisted of the sugar, the salt, all-purpose flour, and we'll get going. So the recipe has probably a little bit more all-purpose flour than required for the recipe. We'll see. It really depends on how wet or dry your flour is. I'm just gonna reuse one of these just to make this a little bit cleaner. You know what? I'm gonna stop that now. I'm just gonna add a bit of the flour. Let's do this in thirds. It should be fine. There's about 1/3. So do this over low speed at first. There we have it. Now we'll just slowly add a little bit at a time until we have a dough that comes together, kind of pulls off the sides of the bowl. Still looking a bit wet. I'm gonna have to. I think we're probably gonna have to go with all this just based on what I'm seeing. That's fine. Got a ball kind of. It's all tangled up in the paddle, so we're gonna switch to the dough hook now. But I'm just gonna ensure that we get all this dough out of the paddle here. There we go. And this is a little bit sticky right now. There's a touch of flour down in the bottom of the bowl here that it hasn't been absorbed yet. That will be once we start moving on it with the dough hook. So here's the dough hook. We will put that in there like so. And we're gonna need this for, I don't know, probably 6 to 8 minutes on low speed, low to medium speed. If you're doing this by hand, that's probably going to equate to at least 10 minutes by hand, 10 to 12 minutes. So, okay, now our dough has come together into a ball. We are going to remove this from the mixer. Prior to removing it from the mixer, I'm going to take a little bit of additional butter that would be included in the recipe. I'm just going to add a bit to the bowl here, kind of greasing the bowl so that when it rises more evenly, and I guess easier as well. So we'll just rub this on the interior of the bowl. And this is the same bowl that held the dry ingredients. I just kind of gave it a quick rinse, so we don't have to make too many dishes. So we'll pull this out of here, like so. And we'll just quickly form it into a solid ball for it to proof. Okay, there we have it. We'll wrap this with saran wrap, and we're gonna have to set it aside for about an hour and a half to 2 hours for it to proof. Okay, so I put the dough on top of the fridge to proof for about 2 hours, and in the meantime, we're going to get started on our two other recipes that are included in this this one recipe. First, we will start with the filling. Probably everyone's second favorite part of this dish, that kind of gooey cinnamon center. Again, in the KitchenAid mixer, if you don't have a KitchenAid mixer, for this part of the recipe, you could use like a hand blender, hand beaters kind of style of mixer would be fine as well. So to the KitchenAid bowl, we're going to add some soft or room temperature butter. Brown sugar. And 5 grams or a couple teaspoons of cinnamon, ground cinnamon. We'll add that to the mixer. using the paddle attachment. And we'll just kind of cream this all together on a low to medium heat, or sorry, speed. You need a rubber spatula to kind of scrape down the sides once this comes together a little bit. Some of the butter is kind of creeping up on the sides here, so we will scrape them down. And basically we want to get this into like a paste. Just gonna let this go for 2 to 3 minutes on high speed. There we have it, it's all creamed up together. I'm just gonna scrape these, this paddle down. Make sure we get all of it. And then see, we've got it kind of lighter and fluffier. And we'll just add this into a bowl. Cover it, and we'll leave it at room temperature until we're ready to use it. And now for the third part of our recipe, we'll make the cream cheese icing or topping. Probably everyone's favorite part, and you know, I think it'll help. It helps balance it out a little bit, that tang from the cream cheese. So we're going to use the KitchenAid mixer again. Again, if you don't have a KitchenAid mixer, you could use one of the hand beater devices, or you could do this by hand. I would suggest doing it in a bigger bowl, and then kind of working your fat together, letting it out with a bit of the cream, and then folding in the sugar. So, like I said, I'm going to start with the fat. So into this bowl, we've got a little bit of cream cheese going in. A couple tablespoons of butter, or 30 grams. I'm just going to bring those two together with a bit of the vanilla paste. So I have vanilla paste here, about a half a teaspoon. I think that's like 2.5 grams or 3 grams approximately. If you don't have vanilla paste, fresh vanilla bean is fine. If you don't have fresh vanilla bean, vanilla extract is fine. If you have neither, then omit. It'll just be a cream cheese frosting without the vanilla. So I'll just cream these together. And sorry, I should have mentioned, if I hadn't already, all of these ingredients should be room temperature, just to make our lives a little bit easier. They'll come together quicker. So, in addition to the cheese and the butter, we're going to add some whole milk. I didn't have whole milk at home, so I kind of emulated the fat content and the viscosity by mixing some 2% milk and a touch of coffee cream. And so about 2 teaspoons of that as well, or 2 tablespoons of that. 4 tablespoons, I should actually say. About 60 mils. Bring that together, and now we're going to incorporate the powdered sugar. So I'm just turning this down to a low speed. Otherwise, we'll end up with a smoke cloud of powdered sugar. Just slowly incorporate that. Once the sugar gets in, we can turn up the speed a touch. it vanilla cream cheese icing. So here we have our cinnamon buns. As you saw, I rolled it out, I filled them, I rolled them up into the buns, discarded the ends, and then placed them, cutting that roll into 8, placed them in a pan, approximately a ½ inch to 1 inch apart. We're gonna wrap this with saran wrap, and at this point you could put them into the refrigerator overnight, and then pull them out Easter morning and bake for 45 minutes. Alternatively, we could just cover it with plastic wrap now, wait the 45 minutes at room temp. They'll kind of double up in size and we'll bake them. So probably about 15 minutes out from the end of that 45 minutes, we'll preheat our oven to 350 degrees. Okay everyone, now we've got the cinnamon rolls. They've been proofing for about just over an hour actually. I said 45 minutes in the previous video. These have been about an hour and 15 minutes. So I've preheated the oven to 350 degrees. We're gonna put these in the oven. They'll take about a ½ hour, at which point we'll take them out, we'll let them rest, and for about 15 minutes, and then we'll ice them and they're good to go. All right folks, the oven timer just went off. We're gonna see how these cinnamon buns have turned out. It's been about a ½ hour. Looking good to me. Nice and brown, puffy, look delicious. So we're gonna wait about 15 minutes just so these cool down a touch before we put the icing on. All right folks, so we've let the buns cool down for about 15 minutes, and we've got our cream cheese icing that we made earlier today. We're just gonna scoop that onto the top of them, smear it around. And that's it. Sticky buns. Cinnamon buns with cream cheese icing. Fresh hot for Easter breakfast.